Welcome to You Can Teach an Old Dog New Tricks using Google Apps. Welcome to this webinar. I've been waiting for this one. It should be really fun and engaging. So let's get started. Who am I, you may ask? I am Dr. Desiree Alexander. I am the founder, CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting. And these are all of the ways that you can reach me and get to me. I will say, if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, right underneath the video, you should see in the details, you should see the resource for today and any other information that we want to make sure that you get. No, you don't get the certificate of attendance, but you do get the knowledge. Next, this is a brand new webinar. So my people that come to like all of the EA webinars, you have not heard about this one. So go register. Celebrating growth over grades using spaces. So make sure that you go register. It's actually next weekend. So it's not like I'll register later. No, you need to go register now. And it's a really awesome presentation talking about the whole child and how we can, we still need to use grades because, we're made to, but how we can look at growth over grades. So definitely go register for this one. It should be really awesome. And if you don't know Melody, she's just so fun when she presents. So, and she's just a fun person anyway, but definitely go register for this one. Brand new webinar. Make sure you register. Then we have the next weekend, SEL, Teaching Essential Skills for Tomorrow's World, with Rochelle, who is just always dynamic. She's been with us for about 3 or 4 webinars already. So we're so happy to have her coming back. And then we're going to go to collaborative storytelling with Elementary, which is an awesome tool where students can create books, and they can even create like manga books and all kinds of stuff, but they also have coding behind it. So you definitely want to come. Nicole is also a repeat presenter, so we're happy to have her back. And then working together on Wakelet in April, so that those are all from March. So those are all like right now, go register. And then you have a little time for Wakelet with Leticia, who's awesome, nurturing a linguistically inclusive learning environment, which should be really awesome. Equity in instructional coaching with Victoria. I mean, we just have amazing presenters. We always do, though. Leverage YouTube for Learning on June 11th. I am going to be at ISTE 2022 in New Orleans, y'all. So definitely check that out. I think March 2nd, the price goes up. So if you're thinking about going to ISTE, you have the money or the school has money or something like that, you may want to register pretty soon. And then we have Rochelle coming back, immerse students in learning, exploring AR, VR, which a lot of us don't use. So that's going to be really interesting to get into AR, VR, and XR. And then I am teaching 2 paid courses through BER. One is on maximizing the power of Google Classroom using cutting edge tools. One is actually Monday, it's virtual, and then another one is in March virtually. And then ELA teachers, the 20 best technology tools. If I'm not mistaken, this one is in March, and it's through BER. And then that is it. Whew, that's a lot of stuff, y'all. And if you're like, Desiree, you went too fast, it's all on the same website. So you see that link at the bottom? It's all on the exact same website. So you can go there and register for every single thing that you want to register for. And if you keep your eyes on it, there's new stuff that pops up too. So we are ready to learn, how do you teach an old dog new tricks using Google Apps?
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited. I can't see you, but I know you're there, which is more than I could say for my students all of last year when I was doing the same thing, teaching online. So that's exciting. I'm also excited to be teaching without wearing a mask, so you can see my whole face. So that's nice. I'm from Yucaipa, California. It's in Southern California, about 60 miles east of LA or so, between LA and Palm Springs, and I teach at Grand Terrace High School, and it's in the Colton Joint Unified School District. This is my 32nd year in the classroom. I've done 6th grade middle school in Tucson, Arizona, and then out here in California, I've taught in a couple districts, and I've taught 9th through 12th grade English, reading support classes, and film studies. And I even taught for a while 6th grade social studies. Thank you, Dr. Alexander, for supporting me and promoting me and having me as part of your series. And also, I'd like to thank Kate Appleby. I know she's out there, for encouraging me to present. And also Kate Appleby and Lauren Tyler, she's there for teaching me all the things I'm about to share with you right now. They've been my biggest support crew or whatever. I came up, and also thank you to my parents who sat through this presentation once already. Basically, they came up with the title because about 4 years ago, so the time is all skewed because of COVID and that time off, but or not time away from school or whatever. But about 4 years ago, I decided one year to boycott technology. I said, I'm not learning anything new. Every year, the district gives us a new grading program or new attendance program or new something, and I'm just going to have to learn something new the next year. And so I got over that. And then luckily I got over that because then COVID happened, and then we were forced to learn everything. And now I have all these technology tools under my belt. And so, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So that's exciting. So what I'm going to share with you today has been developed over the last 2 years, but the curriculum that it's based on has really been developed over my 32 years of teaching. So I'm not sure who's watching today, if you're experienced teachers, new teachers, or whatever, but if you're new, don't think that I just did all this in 2 years. This has been I've just basically taken the last 2 years, especially the last year and a half, the things I have been doing on paper, and I had all these files, and I've transferred them onto online. So I just wanted to give that little addendum or whatever. I'm going to share a variety of strategies and ideas. Some are for personal use, some are for teacher use, some are for one is even for if you are an advisor to a club, and then some are for student use, obviously. And you are welcome to steal everything. I mean, borrow everything. I mean, use everything, however that you want to. Okay. So, and by the way, that is the dog next door that I walked during COVID. There's 2 dogs like that. That's just one of them right now. But we became friends with them during COVID when I was at home and a lot. And I even walked them one time. So it's the dog next door. Okay, so the first thing, so I'm going to divide this into the different tools that I use. And after each tool, before I go to the next slide, I'll stop and ask Dr. Alexander if there's any questions. So if you have questions about that tool, go ahead and put them into the chat. So the first one is Google Classroom. And there's various ways that I've used it. So I'm going to click on mine. Some of the things you'll be able to, when you get the slideshow, you'll be able to click onto. Obviously, you won't be able to get into things that have my password, but I'm going to show you how I use them. So there's 3 things I wanted to share about Google Classroom. One is the theme. And I know that I went to the workshop on Canva a couple weeks ago, and I know there's a way to make these, but it was too late. I'd already made them. So what I did is I made a slide on Google Slides that was this dimension, and I made it different colors. And then I have each of my theme post is unique to that class. So for my film studies, for instance, I made theirs with a more of a film studies background, and I put their names if they're on the screen. For my English classes, we did something where I had made the boxes, and then they filled in the box with their name and then an alliterative adjective like Jolly Jonathan or Vibrant VNA. And these have been up all year. And as kids added to the class, in the second semester, I put their names in as well. And it just kind of personalizes. I started it last year, obviously, when we weren't on meeting, but I thought it's kind of a cool way to make the classroom individual. So each one has a different names, obviously, different color background. 5th period taught me something from TikTok, which was they said, Miss Wilson, say sheesh. And so I said sheesh. And so I put that on there too. So, and then one class drew on the board a lot. So sometimes I add those drawings or whatever. So that's the theme. So then, the second thing I wanted to share was on the stream page. I used the stream page and the classwork page. So on the stream page, I started this again during COVID when we were, our district was away from campus for a full year and a quarter. So all of last year. And so I started this last year and I've kept it up this year. And that is every day I post what we did during the day. And as we're still having out here in California, it's gotten a little bit less over the last few weeks, but and we still have kids that are being quarantined. And then there are kids that just miss for having a cold or having an appointment or something. So it's been really useful to every day post what we did that day during class. And so if a kid misses, they can check and see. I actually got COVID in January. I have superpowers now because I had all my vaccinations as well, but I had to be gone. And so this is a way to communicate with the kids that we had started all last semester. The second thing I do is on the, or the third thing with Google Classroom is on the Classwork page. I created two things. One is at the top, I have a section that's just called This Week and Now, and that's what we're currently working on. Some things are long-term, like this assignment, the students made slideshows about themselves and they're presenting them throughout the quarter. And this one is not due, you can see it's not due till the end of the quarter. They're like long-term. These I still have to grade. Once I grade them this weekend, then they'll go down in the unit. And so the rest of the page is the unit. So we've done To Kill a Mockingbird, and they're for the whole, I keep them for the whole year since it's a year class, even though the semesters are graded separately. So that kids can go back and refer to things. So we were doing To Kill a Mockingbird right now, and we do something weekly called Language Enrichment, Artist of the Week, where we practice sentence styles through studying different artists. And there's vocabulary. Then we had last semester a unit on argumentative writing, short story, independent reading. They had to read a book on their own, and there's some activities with that, some writing assignments. And then the very bottom is just general information resources like the syllabus, the website, which I'll get to later. The counselors did a presentation, just general information. So that's kind of how I organized it. So it's really been a good pattern. And I asked the kids, so like, does that help? And they seem to know, they said yes, they seem to know where to go in terms of like how to navigate and find what they need if they've missed class or if they're missing work or whatever. So that is Google Classroom. So were there any questions or comments on the Google Classroom before I move on to the next slide?
No, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next one I have a lot of different, I don't know how to get rid of this thing right here. Is there like a way like, so I don't have to keep seeing this?
Actually, we don't see it.
Okay, so just I see it. Okay, so I have to go back now. Okay, Jamboard. Okay, I'll just not pay attention to there. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Jamboard was quite exciting when I learned how to use it. And once I didn't have any idea, and then I watched a YouTube video on it, and then it changed my life. And so there's a bunch of ways I've used Jamboard, including on a lot of them last year, obviously as a way to connect when the kids, I wasn't seeing them, but I've still used it, and I used it as recently as yesterday. So one way I've used it is that you know how you want something on white, like you have some information you want to give kids and you need to give it more than one day at a time. And so, but you might have to erase your whiteboard, or now we're not even like using the whiteboard much because now we have Promethean boards we're supposed to be using. But I have like, so like this was the MLA heading. So instead of writing it on the board all the time, when I need it, it's already there. So I have something called Wilson's whiteboard. So it's just the things that I commonly need, or directions for something like last year, frequently, like, well, actually most every day when I started their class with them, I'd have them put in the chat box, like Dr. Alexander did when you guys were coming in, and she said like, where are you from? So I would have like little welcoming things. So instead of like writing them up each day, I would just have this already there. So that's one way to use Jamboard. Another way is for some SEL activities. Like social emotional learning activities. And so I had this one, and this was also one we did with the Canva exercise, like, or the Canva workshop a few weeks ago. And so the idea was create a sticky note, and the tools are over here, and put a positive word that starts with the first letter of your name, add your name in parentheses. And so this was kind of a way to like bond with the class a little bit. Okay, then another SEL one was triumphs and tests. And you can get these set up beforehand, the Jamboard, so you can prepare them beforehand. So it's really easy just to go, okay, and then you give the students access by sharing and saying everyone who has the link has edit access. And yes, there can be problems with that, but I found a way to get around that, and I'll show that in a second. And so then they can create their own sticky. And so we talked about their triumphs, and there's something they're frustrated with. And then another was a would you rather, and this is kind of fun. Sometimes it's kind of fun at the beginning of the year. Sometimes it's kind of fun as a filler. It could be like a do now activity, but like would you rather? And so they take their sticky, and this time they have to place it on a specific side. So would you rather be invisible or able to fly or change the past or see the future? And it is sometimes kind of, it's just something fun to do. Like I said, a do now or a filler, or just to kind of generate some conversation. You can also link it with specific curriculum as well. Now, these were all sort of just general things. These are for specific books. So this is for To Kill a Mockingbird. So before we started, about 4 weeks ago, reading To Kill a Mockingbird, we did this activity. And so I have my directions on the first page. You can see it's 5 frames up here. So read the teaser, then using sticky notes, answer the questions. And then this is how I got around the problem of kids randomly using the pen or putting silly pictures or whatever on the pages that I actually want them to do like curricular work, okay, or academic work. So I said, if you have the sudden uncontrollable urge to doodle with a pen or insert silly pictures, do so on the final slide, but after you complete your work. And so we had a teaser, and I got this from an online source, and information about like To Kill a Mockingbird. So I read this, and then they had to answer 2 questions. What do you know? And what do you want to know, or what question do you have about To Kill a Mockingbird? And so the students filled these out, and then I saved them in my To Kill a Mockingbird unit on the Classwork page. So we can go back as we read the book and go down to the Jamboard and see which questions have been answered. And then the last page is this doodle page, okay? And the kids like to get silly with it. But once I started doing this last year, the doodle page, then I got less of this random drawing stuff on the pages that I actually wanted to like to grade on. And so like, I don't want that distraction there for them. So that gave them an opportunity to be silly, but then to be appropriate on the pages that needed to be appropriate on. The other one was, and I did this on paper this year, but because, but it was another way to use it, is that when we got to chapter 4 of To Kill a Mockingbird, Scout talks about summer, and she talks about how Summer is sleeping outside in the treehouse or on the back porch, and Summer is Dill, and Summer is like, and she has some different imageries that she uses. And so I have, before we read the chapter, I have the kids write, and I model with this one. What is summer to them? And they have to have an imagery. So I say summer is sticky, sweet watermelon fingers, and then they have to come up with their own sticky. And like I said, this year we did it on paper, but last year we did it on Jamboard, and one of the kids came up with a background, and then I take the stickies and turn them into a class poem. I just put them in order and put it in some kind of order and like kind of lump them together, chunk them together, and make a class poem, and that's now hanging on the classroom wall. And then the one I used just yesterday was this one, and this one is more like a reading check. And so we're reading chapter 12 of To Kill a Mockingbird. And so you can see now it looks a little different. I've added a rule in here, and I'm going to tell you why. I already had pre-made stickies with the kids' names on them. Okay, and so it takes about 5 minutes. If it seems like a long time, it doesn't. It takes about 5 minutes, because you just keep making the stickies, and then you can order them, just drag them to the right order, and they're in alphabetical order by the student's last name. And then I copied and pasted copied the frame multiple times to make the various slides. Okay, and what's at the top of the slides is questions. Okay, so this time the rules changed a little bit because I had changed the Jamboard. I said, please leave your sticky note where it is. You may change your sticky color. Okay, but write only on the sticky that you're like, write only on your sticky. And then also, if you have a sudden, I still had the doodle board or whatever. And so I went through, and we would read a few pages, and I asked the question, how has Jim changed? And these are kids from last year and their answers. And so they would answer the question, and then we'd move on to the next question. And so it was a way, and I do realize that I don't do this all the time, because obviously kids can copy each other's answers, but I don't think there was a lot of that going on, because they were busy typing at the same time, because I watched them yesterday, and then they were submitting it, but kind of at the same time. One way to get around kids just copying other kids' answers is to tell them to all write their sticky note, but don't hit save yet, and then have them all hit save at the same time. And then they'll all pop up at the same time. One thing that happened, this is nice doing this, is that it keeps kids on it. Okay, keeps kids like accountable, because if some kid's not done, they're kind of like, hey, what are you doing? Like, so I don't have to say anything. And yesterday, one kid actually wrote the answer to the one question on the wrong slide, and the kids are like, Robert, you're writing on the wrong slide. And so they're putting themselves in check. And so it did keep, and it's kind of really easy to grade. It does seem overwhelming. It doesn't. I will look at these 4 and I'll grade that question. I'll grade that question. I'll grade that question. And then they get their 50, and I go on through all 5 of them and they'll get their 50 points. And it's actually pretty fast to grade. So it's not as overwhelming. And plus I kind of know that they should have like, all the answers, because we've sat there and kind of talked about it at the same time. So it's just kind of a different way to, like, I don't want to do the same kind of activity with every chapter. I want to keep them accountable. I want to have a discussion with the book, but it was just a different way to kind of break up the reading. Okay, so that was some uses of Jamboard. So were there any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. So next. Okay, so this idea came from, let me show, it came from a podcast I listened to called Cult of Pedagogy. And it was this is the one that was on that podcast and made by Amanda Cardenas and Maria Morris. And their podcast was called, or their like a seminar was called Making Units More Inspiring with Vision Boards. And I said, oh, that sounds really cool, because I used to make vision boards on New Year's Eve with poster paper and magazines and all that. And I did it for several years in a row. And then I would just have them hanging in my room for the year and then put up the new one the next year. And I'm like, that sounds really cool. I want to try it. And so, and I went to I listened to that seminar last like November. And so I knew that in January, this would be coming up. And so I wanted to make one for To Kill a Mockingbird. So basically a vision board is to take a slide, and slides, Google Slides are really nice because it's really easy to insert pictures and shapes and drag things around. So it seems more like user-friendly to make something visual than in Docs, although it is possible in Docs. So you can also make the shape of the slide or the measurement of the slide bigger as well, or different. So what I have here is basically my whole To Kill a Mockingbird unit, minus the questions for each chapter. I see someone has joined me in there already. That's awesome. So the things that are highlighted in blue and underlined, those are my actual links. So my links to my activities. So this is really useful because I had just one place to go, like to find all my stuff I needed. And so we did before we started reading To Kill a Mockingbird. I wanted to not teach, but remind the kids what they had learned in middle school, okay, about American history. And so we had some things that like this, I made something before that was on Nearpod, which is another thing that I'm not showing today because that's not part of the Google Suites or whatever. And this year I thought I was going to have jury duty, and Nearpod was a little bit hard to like manipulate for like a sub to do. And so I turned them into HyperDocs. So if I go to this one, see that it's just linked right there, and I can go into the, oh, there, I moved this. Okay. I can go into this, and then I just had the activity, and then these were different videos that I had originally on my Nearpod session. And so they watch the video and then they answer the questions. And so that's that. So we had done, so all of these here are the background that we did before reading To Kill a Mockingbird. And then I have, as I made a slideshow about presenting To Kill a Mockingbird and the ways we address the book. And then just some personal response things, some issues that I wanted to focus on, the geographical background, and these, some of these are also links. And then the pre-read, that's the KWL activity that I showed you, that was the Jamboard activity, and a list of characters. I don't have here the daily assignments, but everything else, like pretty much the background is here, and it's kind of like my place to go, like, okay, what are my goals again? What do I want to focus on? But to have all the resources in one place, that's amazing. Like, I have only opened my actual physical file of To Kill a Mockingbird twice now, and we've been doing this like now for the last like 4 weeks. So like I haven't had to go through my file. Everything's like right here. I'm like, that is like that was really cool. So I thank Amanda and Maria for sharing their idea, and you are welcome if you teach To Kill a Mockingbird to use this. If you don't teach English, the idea just to make a vision board where you put all the links to the different things that you're going to use just seems like really helpful. Just has been very helpful to me. Okay, so that was that one. So any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, so this was kind of my favorite one, and like, well, no, they're all kind of my favorite for different ways. But I was really excited to make a Google site, and I actually honestly don't remember how I first came about it. I think it might have been that when we went on in 2020 March. That's when we went on, everyone, the world shut down, and we went on online learning. So I think the first one I made was Romeo and Juliet. So I have made these 5 4 Google sites. One of them is for students. But so this one is the one for Romeo and Juliet. And so what I did is I was determined. Well, actually, the kids really wanted to still learn Romeo and Juliet, even though we weren't in live session. Like, Ms. Wilson, you're still going to teach us Romeo and Juliet. I'm like, okay, so how are we going to do this? So I made this, so I just sat down and I probably watched I do remember that we had 1 week of training in March after spring break. So it must have been the first week in April of 2020. And we had 1 week where the district presented a bunch of different like webinars about different tools on Google. And I probably went to the Google site one and learned how to use it. And so I have like things about Shakespeare. I have a list of, and so I had a slideshow. And again, this slideshow is something I had made before. I just put it onto this website. And then a list of characters, a plot summary, advice for reading Shakespeare. And then I have links to the different acts. And so because I knew not all the students were going to log on and be with me live, I mean, I had a student who had to be with his dad in his truck going from job to job, and he wasn't always getting good internet. So that was a real struggle that first spring. It was a struggle throughout last year as well. So I had to make it so they could have access to the information on their own time. So I have the text and then the audio, and then another teacher had made short little cute videos to introduce each act. So I included them in their like YouTube videos, and then and the directions of how to get there. So that's for each act. So that was my Romeo and Juliet website. And so then I made another one I'll skip this one, for Greek mythology as well, since that's something I do with my honor students. And so that was for last year. I came up with that so I could continue teaching Greek mythology. And it has, again, activities I would usually do on paper. I had done before for years and years and years since I taught 6th grade in the 1990s. Okay, but I just put them online and then gave the kids the assignment from there. I usually do a lecture. There's some lectures that I usually do, my favorite lectures of the year. And so I figured out how to do them on paper, and then with time lapse. I'm using just my iPhone. And so I put the lectures I usually did in Classroom, put them on video. And that's been really helpful also, because even though I've gone back this year to doing the lectures the old school way, or the fun way on the web, on the whiteboard in class, if a kid's absent, then I have the video for them. And then I have things from the gods and the creatures, various myths, the heroes, and then the Odyssey. And we had, I'm going to get back to that later. That's another one. So I'll come back to that later. And then I decided last year as well to make I said, well, you know what? I could have all my stuff that I have together for my English class, like all the things I usually want to tell the kids, I can make that as a website as well. And so I made a website for English 1. And this is actually on Google Classroom, on my last section of Google Classroom, in the information on the Classwork page, with the page that has the units. The very bottom says like information resources, and this is there. So I have kind of my expectations on the first page, and this is a poster that also hangs like right when the kids come in the room, they see this poster. But then I have things like my do-it list, like my expectations, like things I want the kids to do, like about their heading, or little things that we have to do this, like that I want them to get into the pattern of doing this year. Punctuation, my the things that bug me the most or whatever, words to spell, like little things like that. But I also made a recess. I'll come back to this one because this is a choice board. But then I have like different things under reading, like different strategies. So I kind of pulled everything I do for English together into one spot. And this is useful for me as a teacher because I'm like, where did I put that handout? Oh yeah, it's right there. And it's also useful for kids because I'm like, you know what? I already said what I want you to do with that. Like, or there's already a strategy for that. Go into my website and see it. And so we have some vocabulary. That's where I have like, this was also, I know how I came up with this. I used to sit at the copy machine a lot. I do not like the copy machine. I know how to fix the copy machine, but I do not like using my time to just wait at the copy machine. And I don't like having to deal with it when it gets stuck. So what I used to do though is make handouts for kids, like one, and they'd be all different colors, and it'd have a little packet. And so I'd say, okay, everyone take out, we're gonna work on writing a paragraph today using good transition words. So look at the pink page in your packet. And so once I made the website, I don't have to spend time at the copy machine anymore. And I wasn't giving handouts last year anyhow, but this has saved me lots of time. So this is that was the other evolution of this. And then we have writing, poetry, To Kill a Mockingbird, Romeo and Juliet. And at this one here, it's a link to my other website. So that was that website. Then last summer, what I decided was I'm getting closer to retirement age. And I decided like what I wanted, I'm not sure what I want to do in retirement, but one thing I thought of doing is to keep continuing helping teachers. I'm very interested. I went to the webinar in January about the Google certification. But I thought like, what do people do nowadays? They're on Twitter, I realize that, but people are less about business cards and brochures, and they're more about websites and Twitter feeds and things like that. And so I said, well, maybe I should make my own website. So I made a personal one for teaching. And so this has been great because just like with my teaching, my units, just like with like I said, I hadn't gone back to my file folder for To Kill a Mockingbird only just twice this year in the last 4 weeks, because I've just been using all my online stuff. I used to have notes in my little portfolio that I have my calendar in, notes here and the notes at different places about my ideas for this year, my goals for this year. Now they're all here on this one website. So I also decided, well, when I looked at like Dr. Alexander's website and if I've gone to other seminars and things, I'm like, okay, well, there's usually a page where they have like something about themselves. So I should do that. And then I just started, the rest of it was just things I want to remember. So I have things and it's kind of like I can add to it now over the next few years while I'm thinking about what to do in retirement. But I have things about me. I have about my teaching philosophy. And again, I used to keep these things in journals or on scraps of paper. And I wouldn't look at them. I would get all enthusiastic in the summer planning for the new year, and I would write them down. I would never look at them. Now I can look at them. Website or Google sites, I don't know a way to edit them on your phone yet, but I can look at this on my phone. So I can't edit it. But if I want to just look at it and go, oh, and remind myself of something, I can be looking at it while I'm waiting at the allergy doctor. I can access to it. So I have access to it. The passion projects, it's something I wanted to work on with my students. So I'm gonna come back to that in a second. Then my goals for this year, different reflections, like thoughts I had. And again, those would be things I usually would keep in a journal. I decided to make one on tech tools. My resiliency one is one I've come to the most because I've had anxiety this year. I've had huge issues with insomnia, especially since getting COVID in January. And I heard that's not like, I'm not like alone out there awake at night. So I built this one. So the resiliency one, and I've shared some of these with my students as well. So I have things like, we had something in the summer called Camp Ed for a couple summers before COVID hit. And so one of the people there had talked about breathing exercises. And so I made something about that. My friend told me that there was this Netflix series, and so I've been listening to that or watching that on meditation. And so I just put, this is not a link to the Netflix, this is just a picture, but it reminds me like, oh yeah, that's something else I can do. And then I've gone to the beach a few times and I've made slow motion videos using TikTok or like the iMovie or whatever. And I put them on there. I found one online. So I took somebody else's and put it on there. And then there was articles, or I talked with the counselor at the district once about anxiety, and he gave me some notes. I put his notes there. And then there was something from the CTA magazine, copied and pasted that there, a couple of things from that, and then different articles. And so, and different strategies. So this is my resiliency page. And like I said, so this is good for me as a person, but also as a teacher. And then ways to engage kids, and then also a link to my English. So this one is the link to my English 1 website, and then specific goals for this year. So I wanted to talk about passion projects because that's going to come up in the next website one. I decided that I wanted the students this year to do a passion project, to make their own website and to do a project about something that they're interested in, that they have a passion about. And so I made some models. So my first one is on LA, because I live near LA. I love LA. I could give tours of parts of LA. So I have a friend, and we go in like frequently. We used to go in more frequently, but BC, before COVID. But I do know it well. And so I put picture with the map. I put pictures, different types of pictures, like there's this carousel. I put some links, I put some videos. And so I was showing this one to model for the students. So that was one of them. And then I made a model about photography. I made a model, and I took I've had my students do this before. It's usually I label it as the iSearch project. This year I called it Passion Project. But I had a couple that I used before. One is on a didgeridoo, because I happen to own one. I do not currently know how to play it, but I do own it. And I every year when I give this presentation, tell the kids I should be practicing, and I promptly forget. But I had that one, and it was already a slideshow. So I put that on there as a slideshow. And then I had another one that was on there that I had done before on Amelia Earhart. So I put that one on there. So these were models for the students. So I had showed them these models. So I decided last August that I wanted my students to build their own Google site. Because I thought, well, that's something that that's like a real life skill, something that they might be using. Like, look I'm going to be using it as my business card or whatever. Like when I retire, that's something that they actually could use. And so I gave them this. It was a little bit more challenging, and maybe I still have to learn this, but it wasn't like when I've had students make like slideshows before, I've made a template, and then I've given it to the students, and then they make their own copy, or I set it, the Google Classroom, so it makes its own copy for them. You can't do the same thing with Google Site. So I had to make a model for them, and then they had to make their own, and then they had to share it with me. So it's a little bit more complicated to, it has been for me. Maybe there's a tricky way someone's going to teach me, but it's a little more complicated to keep track of. But I'm not grading it all the time. It's not like a daily grade thing. So I had them, and they had to have these pages. So a page with their name, something about themselves, and then their goals. Then they had to have a page for their passion project. And some of them got so into it. When we ended up presenting, I ended up having them actually make a slideshow of it, because it was easier to actually present in class. But then they pasted the slideshow into this page. But some of them filled this page up before I even asked, with a bunch of different things. Then I have a page for a blog. I have not used that yet, but I really wanted to have my students do a blog. And so I'm on the verge of it, but I haven't got to it yet. I have a webinar that I listened to about blogging, but I haven't tried it with my students yet. And then I wanted them to make a list of useful websites. So they would have this link like to the Khan Academy, or to our district's website, or to things like Sora, which is our online library system. So any tech tools that are useful, and they probably have other ones, tech tools that are useful. Then I wanted them to find things that help them with their resiliency. So I shared the things like the calming wave videos and the meditation things. I shared things like that with them. And then they had to find their own things. I want them to come from them, but I shared my website with them. So anything about breathing, calming, building confidence. Then I wanted them to have a page about academics. And this is where they could put handouts that were useful that they might keep from year to year. So it could be, I wanted them to have their reading log on it for my class this year, and then organizational tools. So I had shared with them a to-do list. The kids at our district get an agenda. like a hard copy of a book, an agenda. But for some kids, they like to do things online. And so I was giving them an option of a to-do list. Also, we did testing. We're doing testing now 3 times a year in our district. And so I had presented with them with some testing and test anxiety strategies, test taking tips. And so that was, again, that was another handout I had made before, but I shared it with them. And then once I shared it with them on this, they could take and make a copy and then put it on their own. And then any study skills and any handouts from the classes that they think, oh, I might use this in another year. This is the idea. And then I wanted to have a page about college. If they start researching colleges, I teach freshmen. But it's never too early to start. So if they had started thinking about colleges or started thinking about careers, and I went to the career teacher and asked, like, what's a good career survey? And so she gave me her favorite one. I put that there. So now, what has happened with these sites? I would say a handful of kids, maybe 3 in each class, has worked on this independently. Most of them have done the this year, like the minimum. They have put, like, they've got it set up, and they worked on the passion page, but they haven't done a lot with it. That's because I kind of have dropped the ball and haven't gone back to it. And this is the first year I've done it. So this is something, this is still, the Google site is still a work in process. We'll say that. But I think it's exciting, and I at least have used it. I've used it to organize my ideas. But then also having the sites, especially for Romeo and Juliet and Greek mythology, on Google Classroom, if a kid misses something, everything's there for them. They really have no excuse to be lost in a unit because all the materials are there for them. And then I really like this one because it's just one place. It's just one place to go with all my stuff. So, so that was Google Sites. I need to take a drink. And is there any water? Is there any questions?
No, but we are loving this. Thank you so much.
Okay, a couple more. Okay, so this is choice boards. And when I first started doing these, I had heard of hyperdocs before, but I didn't, and I had gone to a workshop in the summer. It was probably 4 summers ago. And I said, okay, that's interesting. And it might have been at a time when I was halfway boycotting stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Then I had listened to a YouTube I should have thanked YouTube at the beginning of this presentation because YouTube has been quite helpful, as you probably all know. But I listened to a YouTube about how to do hyperdocs, and I'm like, oh, hyperdocs, it's just a doc with a table inserted, and then you change the colors up and stuff. That's easy. I can do that. And so I said, I'm going to make a hyperdoc. And then after I made one and I shared it with Kate Appleby, she said, Heidi, what you've created is really a choice board. And so now I know the difference. And so a hyperdoc is more something. I shared one of them when we did To Kill a Mockingbird, and I pulled up that one preparatory activity. And so a hyperdoc is a doc with links on it that you can go to various things. But a choice board is more like one of these. So I'm going to share these because I was super excited about these. So this is the first choice board I made. And it was actually, I think this was in April of 2020. And so, so a choice board is basically, this was a doc, a Google Doc. And what you do is you insert a table. It's awesome. And you can do things like, I could do a whole webinar on tables. They're awesome. Okay, it wouldn't be an hour and a half, but a half hour just on it. But I didn't, because until I learned that you can merge, this is basically 3 boxes merged into one. And I was like, wow, that changed my life. And then you can change the colors, whatever. So basically this first one I made, my first one ever was for the socially emotional learning or social emotional growth. And it was recess time, and we're all stressed out in April of 2020 and throughout last year. So this is on my website. This is also on the on my Google Classroom, on the Classwork page. There's a link somewhere to it. Okay, and I usually have at the beginning of the year the students do some activity where they have to explore them and give me a little bit of feedback so they know where they are. But behind each picture is a link. So these are mindfulness exercises, and I pulled ones that were for teen appropriate. So I do teach high school. So I'm sure there are ones for little kids too, if you are an elementary school teacher. This one was important for last year. because a lot of kids weren't doing their full PE online, but it's just a nice idea to get up and move a little bit. This one was a different games. It was card games. This one was art projects. This is a link to Sora. Again, that's our online library, which accesses our whole district as well as our county. This was like funny things, and I just picked funny things from I Love Lucy. Not all the kids think I Love Lucy is funny, but I do, and that's what I chose to put on there for now. Okay, this one was TED Talks by kids. So it was Get Inspired, and it was all like teenage TED Talks, which are very cool. And this one is Practice Gratitude. So it was ways to practice gratitude. And again, it was, I just typed in like different things, and I would put teenagers or kid friendly or something like that. And so it was easy links. And then this one was more serious last year, but it was a place of resources for kids to go if they were feeling depressed or suicidal. And so there was that link. And then my mom, and I know she's here right now, she sent me a letter. Thanks, Mom. She sent me a whole article about from Mayo Clinic about last year, how to survive like COVID, like mentally. And so I just attached that there. And I even sent it to some kids that had graduated and that were really depressed and stressed out. And so, so that was there as well. So this is like, I mean, I can always use this. I can always go in and go, oh, I really need a laugh right now. I want to do this or whatever. Or if a kid is talking to me and they seem like, I mean, obviously I have to refer them, but if they need more information, like, and I just have this link to the suicide hotlines or whatever, boom, it's right there. But mostly this was for the kids to like, to take advantage of. The second one, the way I used the choice board was, for writing prompts. And this was last semester. One of the assignments the students had to do was to write a short story. And so usually I would have them in a journal, like for a few weeks before we started writing the short story, while we were reading short stories. I might have them, okay, in your journal today, write about blah, blah, blah. And it would connect with whatever short story we were reading, but it also be a way for them to generate ideas for the short story they were going to have to write. So last year, obviously, we didn't have journals. This year, I got some journals, but then I wasn't quite sure that I wanted to be collecting a bunch of paper from kids that might have COVID, number one, and number two, I didn't want to be, and there were still a lot of kids out like last semester while we were doing this. So I just put it online. So, so what they have to do is choose one prompt to write about during a class period, write at least 150 words or more, be as detailed as possible. And then this was a 4-day project. So they had to do it like over 4 days, and I would give them the assignment, okay, we're gonna do another one of those prompts today. So they would put the date, they would put the title of the prompt, like the word choices, and then they would just write underneath here. And so, so I'd have like significant experience, best or worst day, surprise, scary, first time. And so they have some choice. And I find that like, I know when I'm asked to do something creative or write about something personal, sometimes I have to think a while, or sometimes I'm stuck, or sometimes I don't really have an answer that goes to that prompt. So I find giving the kids the choices is really helpful. It gets them writing, especially the kids. I mean, some kids don't have any problem writing. They always have something to say, but some kids kind of get stuck or they're not sure. And so having this choice was really good. And then when we got time to write, we did some other things as well to generate ideas for story writing. But when it was time to do the story, then I said, okay, well, go back to your choice board. You can, one of your options, you can make up a story completely. You could make up something that's partly true and then you know, add fiction to it, or you can make something that's totally true and write about that. But you have these things. You could take something from your story writing prompt choice board to start. Okay, so you had something to start with. Okay, then these last two right here, the third and fourth, are for To Kill a Mockingbird. So before To Kill a Mockingbird, when we were doing all the preparatory work for like about history and reminding them about the 1930s and the 1960s and teaching them about like life in Alabama in the 1930s and all that. And we were doing the background information. The other thing I did to prepare for To Kill a Mockingbird is some preparatory writing. And so I made it this time puzzle pieces. And I said, so each puzzle piece, each prompt, again, they were different prompts, and each prompt had something to do with the themes or characters or situations in To Kill a Mockingbird. So describe yourself as a 6 to 8 year old. Describe a mysterious house or person in your neighborhood. Explain something that confused you as a kid. Describe a scary moment. This one in the middle is a different color background, is black. The rest are gray, and there's a reason for that. And then describe a time when someone was judged unfairly, a punishment you got, a game you play as a kid. Draw and describe 2 images that represent a toy you had. And then this one is a different color because everyone had to do it. This was a required one. So how does the world, school, family, friends, technology, politics influence who you are as an individual? And the reason I did this one is because I really want them to see, when we read To Kill a Mockingbird, that there's various ways that you approach a text, like through the author, through the history, through the time period this book is set, through the time period it was written, through the characters, through the setting, through the plot. And so there's all these ways that we look at a text, just like there's all these ways that we look at ourselves as individuals. And so what they had to do is to pick 4. They had to, and here's the directions. They had to write 4 to 6 on each prompt. So that everyone had to do the black square, and then they had to pick 3 of the colored ones to do down here. So 3 color puzzle pieces to complete, and then they would just turn it, and they would write down the prompt number. And so, yeah, pretty easy to grade and pretty fun to read because they were talking about themselves. So they like doing that. And then I would go back and, okay, remember when we start talking about Boo Radley in the first chapter of To Kill a Mockingbird, remember I asked you, and some of you wrote about that mysterious house in your neighborhood or the mysterious neighbor. This is why. Remember when I asked you about getting in trouble as a kid? This is why. Okay, so they had that as like a reminder. And again, it's something I've done in the past. It's just I put it in choice board mode this year or whatever. Okay, and then the one I'm using, I started using now, the first couple chapters, and I don't remember where I got this actually, but I did hear a talk at one point. I don't remember. But it was about an English teacher who was really frustrated because she felt like just giving questions and quizzes to kids when they read a book just killed the life of the book and killed the joy of the book. And so I was like, yeah, I agree. And I really wanted there to be discussion with the book rather than just like, I'm going to test you on your reading or whatever, because I'm a passionate reader and I love To Kill a Mockingbird. And up until like 4 years ago, when we got a new textbook in our district, we didn't teach To Kill a Mockingbird in 9th grade. We taught Of Mice and Men, and I loved To Kill a Mockingbird. And I was very apprehensive about teaching it because I didn't want kids to ruin it. I didn't want them to be like, this is boring. And so I decided I would do something more like open-ended. And so I have a mix now. I do have to confess, I have a mix where the kids do have to, while they read, they do have to answer some questions as well, because I'm also trying to teach them how to answer a question using words from the text, because in the end, they're going to have to write a literary analysis essay. But when we start, the first 3 chapters, what we do is this, and they have a choice board. So they are 12 choices, sentence starters, and they have to choose 2, and they have to respond in the chapter. So they'll read chapter 1, and then they have to pick 2 of these. So what they can say what happened in the section, so they can just summarize. That could be one of the things they do. They can say what they liked or disliked, the question they have, what something's meant to symbolize, what they think might happen next, what the passage reminds them of, like how they connect with it, their favorite part or quote, the theme of the passage, the theme that they notice. And in the first 2 chapters, there's not really a theme, but by the time you get to chapter 3 and Atticus says some words of wisdom, then you already have a theme. What surprised them, what they realized or noticed, if it were them, what they would do, and what imagery they noticed that helped them understand something. And so what they do then is to write the number of the prompt. They have to write 3 to 4 sentences of their own ideas, and then they have to actually copy and paste the part of the text. Or not, we'll copy and paste it, because I have what I've done is they copy and paste or they type up a part of the text, and then they have to cite it with quotation marks and the author's last name and page number in parentheses. So I'm trying to get them to connect with the text, but also they have to learn how to do the MLA format for properly citing words that they take from a text. So I'm teaching them that as well. And that's what we do for the first 3 chapters, just that. I'm not testing them. I'm not quizzing them. We're reading the book out loud together at the beginning. And we read a lot of it out loud because that's what I prefer, because I love to share the literature. What I have done also is with each chapter, I've made the chapter online. And then I have a link to the chapter, and there's also an audio through YouTube. And so we listen to that audio. So if they can, so if they want to type it up, they can, because they have a hard copy of the book. But if they just want to copy and paste that section, they can copy and paste it. This is just my model one. It's not the one specific one for chapter 1 or chapter 2 or chapter 3. So that was the other way I've used the choice board. Okay, any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. I see there's lots of comments in the chat. Okay.
We are having a really good discussion, and just the stuff that you're showing is amazing.
I'm excited to read it later. Okay, so this is super exciting. And this, I'm again thanking Kate Appleby because she shared with me the world of Slides Mania. So this is Slides Mania. So this, well, I do have to say that most of the other stuff, the slideshows, all the previous slideshows, the choice boards, the Jamboard, the vision board, the Google Sites are all made from blank templates. I'm an only child. I don't like to be told. I'm a Leo. I don't like to be told what to do. So I have never been someone who has used templates before. I've always like, oh, I can do this. I can make my own. And I've been quite successful making my own. But then Kate introduced me to the world of Slides Mania. And I found this very cool one that was a museum. So I'm like, I'm going to use this for the Odyssey. So I made this. This was last year I made. And so, so kind of like the vision board for To Kill a Mockingbird, where I have all the links, all my Odyssey unit is right here. And when we did the Odyssey last semester, we started last semester and we had to finish in January. But when we did the Odyssey this year, again, I barely ever went into my big fat file folder of stuff that's in my garage, usually, because everything was online. So this is super exciting. So if I'm going to go into it and show you my, so what happens is if you go to Slides Mania, they have all these slides already formatted for you. And this was the art gallery slideshow. So what you do is you go in and then, I don't want to go into it now because I don't want it to automatically start playing, but I won't put it into slideshow format. So what I did is I had about, even though I boycotted technology, I do have modern phones. And so I have an iPhone. And so a few years ago, I had discovered iMovie trailers. And so I went iMovie trailer crazy. And so I was making iMovie trailers for everything, like a walk I took, or when my 9th grade team met or something like that. So I made a trailer for the Odyssey. And so that's there's like a little introductory trailer for to get them pumped up. We're going to see this show or whatever. And then each of the other ones are different rooms. And like when you get the art gallery slideshow, each of these rooms has like a room on it, like room A, B, and C, and they all can connect. I took those connections off because it wasn't like working for me, but they will connect, and there's more ways to link it. I've taken some of those links off of my particular one, but they have things like these lights that you can put on. And then each of these pictures is a link. So this like sculpture is a link. That was the Odyssey background. This one was the concepts and values I wanted them to learn. And basically it was a picture of a poster that I usually have hanging in my classroom. Again, last year we weren't in my classroom, so I had to have it like this. And this year I hung it in my classroom, but I also referred to it here. This was a slideshow, like the whole storyline of the Odyssey. So I tell them the whole storyline first because that epic starts in the middle of the story. So I want to tell them, hey, this is where he is now. And he's going to go back and tell all this part later. Okay. And then I had the vocabulary I wanted to learn. And there's really only like 9 words I wanted them to learn from the whole, like specifically from the whole book. And then I had the characters. And then there's a more formal list of the characters under the face. Then I have, like, we had background on the Trojan War, and usually in the class I have them enact it. So I have name tags with the different gods and Paris and Menelaus and Helen, and then we do a little skit and they act it out. I had that thing that I usually read while they act it out link to the back of these and some other information. And then I have YouTube of the movie that was the mini series. And so this, whenever they see this, it means they're going to stop and see some of the movie. And so, and then I had the map of Odysseus's. And then for each chapter that we read, they have the text of it. From the textbook, I would just say what lines to go to. And then some of the text is left out. The textbook has a abridged version. And so I would tell them that part of the story, or we would see that part in the movie. And so we had so every time there was a movie, and I added the curtains and the barrier or whatever, and the image, whatever. But every time there was one of this, it was a reminder, oh, we need to stop and see the next part of the movie. And so, and it even tells you what minutes to see. And so this was like the whole section. So like all the things that we read. And at the end, I put a little joke for Odysseus, and then gave credit to the Slides Mania because it was pretty amazing. But I just thought it was like a really cool way to do a unit. Like, again, like everything was right there for the kids, for me, like all the links are there. I don't have to go and go, oh gosh, where's the movie again? It was like right there. I don't have to go to I don't have to open a different tab and like, oh, I have to go to YouTube. It was like all right there. You have to sometimes check. This is true with all the things I've shared today. You have to check that all the links are always up to date and working when you pull it up the next year. But it's still nice to have everything like organized in one thing. So that was like really, really helpful. So so Slides Mania. I would suggest, like, because they have a bunch of different ones, and if you're someone who likes to use templates, they have just a ton of templates. It's just this particular one was the art gallery one, and I found it very useful. I'm almost done, so I'm just going to keep going, and then we'll have time for questions. Is that all right?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I wanted to share, I added this last night, and I wanted to share something. This is kind of my conclusion. I have 2 slides that are part of my conclusion, but I'm one of the advisors to our BSU at my high school. And so we had our showcase yesterday afternoon. And so, and I was thinking last night that the tools in Google Classroom, besides all the things that I've already talked about today, have really been tools of empowerment. And so I just want to quickly explain how I've used these 3 tools with our BSU. For one thing, we have, and we started this in April of 2020, we made a classroom for our club. So a Google Classroom for our club. And it's how we met through Google Meet when we were off, because in April, we went off on online teaching, and then we had Black Lives Matter for horrible reasons, right? Had to have marches and things, and it was a very disturbing summer, and the kids were distraught. And so we had a way to meet with them and support them when George Floyd, all the marches were going on, and there was a lot of disruption, and they didn't have that connection with one another at school. And so we had a way to meet. Now we've just kept that link live. And so that is the club, that's the way the club meets. And that's the way the club puts announcements, we meet live now, but puts announcements, puts the cabinet members, if they have to have a vote on something, the attendance, and then there's books. So if I find a book, or Kate Appleby is our librarian, if she finds a book, or we find articles that have to do with African-American history or Black Lives Matter, we can put them there. But the other thing is that the cabinet members are teachers on the classroom. This is going to make me a little bit emotional, but they have the power also to put things onto Classroom. And so it has been a very powerful tool during our preparation for our showcase that we had yesterday, because the kids were doing stuff like the president of BSU said, I want to see your speeches. And she made an assignment, and the kids had to turn the assignment in on Google Classroom for her to check. But then it was also there for me to check and the other advisor to check as well. And so the kids are the teachers as well. Now, the same thing with the docs and the slides. For our presentation yesterday. We've done this, I've been the advisor for several years now. And so we usually have a slideshow that's in the background, and we did it outside yesterday because of COVID, but we have Promethean boards. So we had the presentation on the slideshow on the Promethean boards. So I set up a slideshow template and I shared that with the whole cabinet. And then I also set up a doc with a table in it that had like the different schedule of all the events. And I shared that with all the cabinet. And so it's mostly the president and I and the other advisor and a couple, maybe another kid, that were manipulating these docs. But this is teachers and kids manipulating the docs together. So I really feel like this was like it was a real life situation. We're working as a team. It wasn't like I was in charge or the other advisor. We weren't the ones in charge. And it wasn't like the kids were totally in charge. We were working as a team. And I just thought that was really exciting. And again, it's all stuff within the Google Suites, which I didn't mention at the beginning. But when we went online and we were being taught all these different things, the first few weeks of quarantine in April of 2020, I decided I was just going to stick with things from the Google Suite, mostly because all my students had access to that because we're a Google district. I didn't want to start using, I did use a few other things that were other sites, but then I thought, I'm just going to stick with Google Suites. And that's kind of why, I should say that at the beginning, but that's kind of why I wanted to bring that up today. The power of Google Suites is more than just everything I said before. It's that idea of empowering kids and working together. So after saying all those technology things, okay, I wanted to say the thing, my last slide is this, is the thing I think that has made the most difference this year is that these door greetings. Okay, so if you don't want to do any of the technology, but you want to steal these door greetings, that would be awesome. What happened was last year, some teachers and some schools in the United States were going back, but they wanted ways to greet their kids at the door that were non-touch, so you weren't touching, sharing germs. And and I saw a poster on Instagram or something, and it was for elementary school. But I'm like, that's a good idea. I'm going to steal it. So I went back this year and I told the kids about it. And so I gave them the options. So when they come in, I stand at the door, and this poster is like right above me where I stand. If I'm opening the door and holding it, it's like right above me. They can give me a high five. They can just wave. It doesn't have to be a touch. They can give me a dab. A student came up with the idea of the little rascal wave. They can give me a fist bump, or they can bow. And the kids that bow tend to be the kids that like Japanese culture. So we also say konnichiwa. So some kids have given me the Hawaii sign, or whatever, like different signs or whatever sign language things. But it has made a difference. I feel like I have one class that's a little challenging, but I have quite a variety of students in there this year. But in terms of like connecting with the kids, or interacting with the kids, and like kind of really enjoying being with the students. Some of it obviously is being back off of COVID and being excited to be back with them. But the other thing is just, I think it's making this connection with the kids at the door. So yes, all my technology things have been useful. But I think the thing that has made a huge difference is getting that eye contact with them every day. And if they start to walk by, I'm like, no, well, what are you doing? Because they have their earplugs in, and I make them stop and give me some greetings, like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. And so there you go. So that is my presentation. Can I stop sharing now? I'm going to stop sharing.
You can if you would like to.
Okay.
Let's see. Do we have any questions? I am going to make it to where you can unmute yourself. And let's see. I'm going to go ahead and say like last call for any questions in the chat or questions on the mic.
I had a question.
Sure.
Yes, please.
You were explaining to me that you started getting emotional or because of something you were proud of with the students. It sounded like they were actually leading the class. They were in charge. Is that the feeling behind that statement you made? I was curious.
Yeah, it wasn't thank you. It wasn't a class, it was a club. It was our BSU, which is the Black Student Union, and I'm one of the advisors. And so we made a Google Classroom for that club so we could put all our stuff on it. And so yesterday we had our showcase. And last night when I was thinking, and this morning when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about how much of a group effort it was. And it wasn't like, because I've directed plays before as well. And that's been very top down. I had an idea of what I want the play to look like. I'm the director. So I've kind of done shows before. But this one was really like the kids had this equal part in like creating the slideshow and creating the speeches, because we've given them as advisors, we've given those students that are cabinet members, like the president, vice president, secretary in Google Classroom, they're listed not as class members, but as teachers. So they have that power. So they're using Google Classroom as teachers. In my regular classes, students don't have that power. I'm still the teacher there. But in the club, they have that power to be teachers, and that's kind of exciting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was wanting to find out, because we're all in this we're all in this field because we're passionate about something, and that was one thing I can tell you were very passionate about. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
I teach a lower grade. I teach 4th grade.
Yeah.
And I do love technology. But do you get, freshmen are going to be different than my age. Do you get a lot of resistance from parents? Of course, freshmen probably don't need their parents like my 4th graders do.
Freshmen are basically like 1st graders, like just bigger. So like,
yes,
they do need their parents. And like, I don't get resistance from parents because like everything's online. In fact, like I had one student not doing his work, and then I sent a note to the parent, and the parent actually didn't read her email for a while. When she finally read it, and I explained, you know what, all my assignments are online. They're all on Google Classroom. I've even made videos. Like last year I had made videos, and I just keep using them this year. So if a kid misses class, and the parent was like, thank you, my kid's a knucklehead, he should be looking at this stuff. I've had no resistance from the parents. Like our district is 1-to-1 now because of COVID. And so the parents are pretty used to that. I've never had any resistance to, because they don't really have anything to resist, like, because I put everything online like already, so like their kid has really no excuse to. I think they found it helpful because they can look at it as well. Plus on Google Classroom, there's a thing that you can invite parents and guardians through their email. And so I sent out an email at the beginning of the year. Last year when we were all online, I got way more takers than this year. But there's some parents that have done it this year. There's a thing that Google Classroom has where the parents can sign up and get weekly, not announcements, like reports of how their kids are doing. So it's actually a beneficial tool for parents because they can see how their kids are doing. So it's another way of communication. So I haven't had any resistance to it. The parents, I think, have found it helpful. And freshmen need a lot of support, especially the freshmen we're getting this year, because you think about it, they're basically still middle schoolers. So, and I taught 6th grade for a while. So I think there's a lot of commonality between 1st grade, 6th grade, and freshmen. So, yeah.
Well, we're 1-to-1. I guess we started that last year. I have parents that they want the hard copy. Oh. And I do Google Classroom, and I put all that stuff in, and I try to make my students independent,
right,
so that they can do that. And then they go home and their parents want to do that for them. Now, there's nothing I can do about that, but that's why I wondered about resistance.
No, I haven't had that that yet. I don't know. Like I haven't had that. I would just say the parents need to come into the 21st century along with all the rest of us educators and students.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, like, and I think that some teachers are going back to paper. Like there are some teachers, but like, and there's some teachers younger than me, and there's some teachers that are I know there's an older teacher on our campus who's a science teacher, and he has struggles with learning all the technology, and he's gone back to paper. But then I'm kind of like, well, what do you do when the kids are sick? So I just like, I really like this. I'm going to stick with it. Now, I'm not saying there's artwork in my room. There's poetry up in my walls. They're on my room. There's still some things we do on paper. They did a really cool activity called a one-pager for a short story we read at Scarlet Ibis last semester, and they had to draw and combine words, and those are up on the wall in my room. So I'm not saying they don't ever take out a piece of paper. And one day something happened and something disappeared on my Google Classroom because I took it off, because it doesn't just do that magically. It disappeared. And so I'm like, you know what? I have this still, guys, take out a piece of paper. We're going to do this old school. And they were fine. So, but most of it, like, I would tell the parent, you know what, this is how I do it now. And it's helpful because everyone has access to it, even the kids that are absent, because we're still going to have kids that are absent even after COVID for a cold or a vacation or a dentist appointment. So
yes, I agree totally. And I hate paper personally. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Heidi. I mean, just the amount of resources that you gave out and, mix that in with the amount of ideas for any, really, like your focus was ELA, but you can take this and modify it for any subject. Just like, seriously, thank you so much. And I love your story of going from like boycotting technology to actually doing more than some techie people that I know, like doing so much more than some techie people that I know. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.